joined us for the second of the three-part series of Power to Motivate. This has been a really fun one for me because it's sort of been the chance to chew on some real-time data with a group of people. So I'm so excited about tonight's class. And Francesca, if you go to the next slide, I'll tell you guys what we're up to do tonight. We're going to do a little bit of digging into the data. When I saw you last, I laid out sort of this habits that help methodology that follows some of the tenets of community-based social marketing for behavior change. And we discussed, the importance of picking the right behavior and really getting to know your congregation a little bit before you jump into an outreach project. And so to support that, we created a little survey, and some people put that survey out into the world, into their congregation, and we collected some data, and we're going to chew on it and see what we can do with it. Now, if your congregation did not do the survey, if you, if the holiday and all the craziness that has happened between when we last saw each other and now was just too much, no problem. You can do this anytime. And we can you will learn the basic methodology, and I think it'll make a lot of sense to you once we go through and have a real world example of maybe how to do some of this stuff. So we're going to dig into using the data to choose which habit you want to focus on, and then also looking at the barriers and benefits, what's preventing people and what might help people as you're putting together a strategy. And then we're going to introduce you to a brand new Habits That Help toolkit that is getting put together, and then we'll talk about our next steps. So next slide. Okay, so this is that 5-step process that people who are behavior change experts use to work on changing behaviors. And what we've done here is try to pull some of the really meaty and important parts of that and wrap it into an outreach plan that you guys can do in your congregations. So next one. This is just, I forgot I left this in here, huh? So this was just our overview of the sessions. We met in December, we're meeting now, and then our last session will be February 18th. And anybody who's doing one of these programs and wants an hour of tech assistance from me or graphics assistance with putting some tools together can do that. And then if people have done campaigns and they want to share what they learned, what they were able to accomplish, we can get together next fall and see what we've done. So we'll have that as an option hanging out there. So getting into the behavior. So oftentimes we have things that we really wish people in our life would do. I wish my husband would not do so much laundry. He's the laundry doer in our household. But he really hates the way I do it, and he does it, and he does laundry all the time. So I wish I could change that about, what he does, and he has a certain method, but he's not going to change that at all. Sometimes we have a thing that we really want to change, but you have to sort of listen to your target audience and see what do they want to change, what are they likely to change, and also what are they not already doing. So we had a group of stewards one time who really wanted to work on a fertilizer campaign, and they created this whole thing to help their community stop fertilizing. And it was this big elaborate thing, and then they went to do a survey of their community to just see who was fertilizing or see what the level of fertilizing, and it turned out nobody was fertilizing their yards anyway. So, the importance of like picking a behavior that people haven't already adopted, and that those that haven't adopted are likely to adopt it. That is the sweet spot. So we're going to look at how we determine that for 2 congregations in this program. So next slide. We had these 7 habits. We had 4 two planting habits, a food habit, a laundry habit, and then 3 plastics habits. So those were the list of habits that we gave as possibilities for this program. So next slide. And the first one we're going to talk about is Faith Lutheran Church. So Susan is here from Faith Lutheran, and I found this little picture from their website, and I thought it was so beautiful. Through God's unconditional love, we build community, with the trees in the background. So fitting for our discussion tonight. Susan, can you tell us just a little bit about Faith Lutheran and anything you want us to know as we're starting to think about your congregation and talk about your data?
Well, currently we are worshiping online totally. However, we do have monthly gatherings for giving out communion outdoors. So we're trying to make use of, the safe spaces. And we have instituted a couple of newsletters. We've given newsletters out with a couple of green habits, and people have been quite receptive with that. Our green team got started about 1.5 years ago. And with Bonnie's help, we sponsored a story of plastics film viewing in the fall. So that was kind of fun. And we're going to have a water audit coming up in a week or so, sponsored by IPC.
Nice. Awesome. So what I thought was really significant about Faith Lutheran, they got 28 survey responses, and they have about 50 to 60 members. So that's like a pretty incredible survey response. And so the data that they have, I think, is pretty robust in terms of moving forward with a behavior. So let's go ahead and see if we can pick out what behavior they should work on. So when we talked last, I talked about using this survey to help determine the opportunity score, which is basically a number that helps us understand how many people are not already doing the behavior. And we set up the survey so that it would automatically calculate that for you. And I'm just showing you that, if you do a survey, like the one or the one that we launched, you can get it. So all you have to do is take the number off the page. So this survey gave us an opportunity score for trees as 3.93. So that is little circle is where I got the number. So it automatically calculates it on SurveyMonkey, which is really great. And if you're plugging in your own survey and you need some tips about how to make it calculate that score, we can help you. But the survey gives it to us. So that was their opportunity score, and that's where I got it. And then the next question was about the likelihood. So of the people that were somewhat unlikely, of the people that were not planting trees, we asked those people, okay, if you're not planting trees, how likely are you to plant trees in the future? So that subgroup of people got asked this question, and the likelihood score was 2.5. And again, that was automatically calculated. And this means nothing to you right now until you compare all of the numbers together. So Francesca, let's look at the next slide. And what I did is I went through all of the survey data, and I noted the opportunity scores for all of the behaviors, and I noted the likelihood score. And then I decided I would multiply those. So opportunity times likelihood. And what you see in the far right column is a comparison of how well or poorly the congregation is to adopt a certain behavior. So let me pause and see if anybody has questions or which behaviors, if you were Faith Lutheran, might you think about adopting? Oh, what's the scale? Great. So it's out of, it's a 5-point scale.
Well, I'll say it looks like the first choice would be, if you're just going by numbers and not right. So the first choice would be reducing the use of plastic grocery bags, but it's not far. Planting a tree is not far behind that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which ones would you not do? And why? Well, if you were Faith Lutheran, what would you decide not to do and why?
Oh God, he's
So you know, the ones with the lowest scores, you're just gonna ditch them. You know, using a clothes dryer as or clothesline or drying rack, even if you love that behavior, you're probably not gonna waste your time working on that one. Plastic eating utensils, probably not gonna do that one. So in this case, Susan, can you talk about which you decided to do and why?
Yes. It seemed like reducing the use of the plastic grocery bag was too easy. So, um, and the state is talking about having a ban, and people in their reasons for why they weren't doing it were really flimsy. And they said, well, you know, as the pandemic winds down, I'm going to be better about it. And so I was thinking, just the reminder in this survey was maybe enough for them to change the behavior. So, you know, why spend all this time on something that is so easy? So that was my rationale.
All right. And so which one did you choose?
Oh, we are choosing plant a tree,
Okay.
which is our second choice, of course.
Okay, so let's see what the congregation said about planting a tree. So we asked people, what's preventing you from planting trees and what would help you plant trees? And I love this data. I love this data for so many reasons. I think when people think about planting trees, they think about that you have to plant trees on your own property. And if you don't have a place to plant a tree, then you can't plant a tree. And nothing could be further from the truth. You can plant a tree in lots of different places, or you can donate money to plant trees. So you can see that, you know, really the number one barrier was that people didn't have places to plant trees. Either they had a small lot, or they already had lots of woods, or their community association plants the trees. So really, that was like the big barrier. And likewise, the big, you know, what would help you is a place to plant the trees. And you know, a close second was someone else to organize, you know, the equipment, the knowledge that to organize the planting of the trees. They wanted that. Um, you know, the other thing in this data that I found really interesting um, is that people talked about. There were a lot of deer, and a lot of people already had trees being planted, or trees, mature trees in their yard. And what that said to me is that probably people are custodians to significant woodlands. And if they are, and there are lots of deer around, those woodlands may not be healthy, and that they probably don't have a healthy understory layer. Um, and what probably is not happening is that new tree seedlings are not being allowed to grow up so that you have replacement trees waiting for when those big trees die. And so, you know, one thing I thought of is, you know, might it be a good idea to do a campaign about caring for your woodlands, you know, with some succession tree planting and protecting from deer? But other than that, how would you help Faith Lutheran plant trees? If you were Susan and her green team, what would you do to help? Looking at this data, what would you do to help Faith Lutheran plant more trees?
I'm so excited. Right. So here, right, the county that they're in Baltimore County, has all kinds of resources to help not congregations and individuals to plant trees. And so that's definitely something we can totally work on together.
Yeah, so the takeaway here is you don't have to plant trees on your own property. You don't have to have individual people take action by themselves. You can organize either a funding campaign for an organization that plants trees, or you can organize planting days, to help volunteer. So there's a lot to do that doesn't have to do with your own property. And as I said, the idea of also helping people to understand how to care for the mature woodlands that they have. I mean, that's another great strategy for helping people to plant trees. So let's move on to Towson Presbyterian. So that's Charlie's home. Charlie, what can you tell us about your lovely church here?
Well, I'm an old man because we started our Earth Corps group about 1990. Okay, and it was ladies that started it, and it was great. And as a result of that, Towson Presbyterian has become an Earth Care congregation with the PC USA. And so we have to report every year, what we do and get so many points and to be certified again. Really, it's been wonderful. And then also, we're very proud. We become a One Water Partnership member, although because we're very politically oriented and it's got to go up a ladder, it's got to go through Earth Corps, through mission, through sessions, and then Jesus Christ has to second it. We will hope we'll become One Water Partnership member. But in any event, we've done that. And you're looking at our intergenerational garden that we started about 12 years ago. And everything that is grown in there goes to the Assistance Center of Towson Churches. So, and we also have a 262-acre preserve up in Parkton, which is right on the NCR Trail. And that was donated to us by 7 families in the 1960s. And about 7 or 8 years ago, our church decided to put that land in a conservation easement, which means it can't be developed anymore. So I think that, our effort and our mission really falls into what we're all talking about now. And Susan,
Awesome.
you should remember, Susan, that Bee Tree is open to any church. You can go up there and enjoy that. It really is. It's off of Kaufman Road in Parkton.
It sounds like there's such a long legacy of doing great stewardship. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about how this group can take their next step. So let's go ahead and look at their data. So I did the same thing as I did for Faith Presbyterian or Faith Lutheran Church. We can look at the scores for Towson. And so looking at those, if you were Towson, what would you work on?
If you're asking me, because we have we've been focusing on plastics, okay, and also plastics came in the top. That would be the one that we'd focus on, and it wouldn't necessarily, I think we'd incorporate both of them together because we do have TPC bags. And there's nothing that upsets me than going through a grocery store to see somebody with 10 bags in their basket, their cart, taking that out there. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I really find very happy when there's somebody up in front of me and has a whole bunch of stuff in their bag, I'll ask that person if they'd like a bag. And if they would, guess what? They get a bag from the store. Okay. And so because I clean streams, cleans woods and everything, and I'll tell you, the most trash we pick up is plastic.
Nice. Yeah. So Francesca's working on a project right now. It's a revision of a publication that we have called From My Backyard to Our Bay.
Right.
And that you guys might remember that one or even have one.
I
And it
do.
was, yeah, it was written, what, 7 or 8 years ago,
Yeah,
10 years
many years ago.
ago. And it's been revised several times in many different counties. And the early iterations about plastic were about recycling. We want you to recycle what your plastic. And now the stewardship is totally different. It's we want you to stop using whatever it is because we know of all the problems with recycling. And so, even though you guys, Charlie, have been at this stewardship for a long, long time, you have sort of a new message to work with. Instead of recycle your plastic, it's, working on the source consumption.
Yeah, I think in the story of plastic, they talk about that. And the 3 R's used to be reduce, reuse, recycle, and now it's refuse.
Refuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first R is refuse.
So, knowing that plastics were, really something that Towson wanted to look at, we took a look at the data for barriers and benefits around plastics. And let's go to the next slide. But Francesca and Katie, I'm going to ask you to just watch I can only see part of our participants, and I know I couldn't hear Myra very well. If she happens to want to chime in, just alert me during our discussion time. So the data that was most robust of the three plastic behaviors was the drink containers. And here's what people said about their barriers. It was really all about it's the only option I have. It's not available when I go out to a restaurant. Um, it they just serve it in plastic containers, so I have no choice. I just have to take what they give me, or it's convenient. I'm going to get it while I'm out, or my drink only comes in a plastic bottle. So, what am I going to do? So that was really strong. People really felt number one, like it wasn't in their control to choose or refuse. And also there was very strong on convenience and availability. Um, there were two other little comments about reusable water bottles are expensive and then they just disappear. Sounds like they have kids who leave bottles places, or their preferred drink only comes in plastic. And then, what would help them? If there were other options at restaurants, anything that made it convenient to not use a plastic container, or if more healthy drinks were available in powder form. It's interesting that I think most people were thinking about a drink and not water. If you sort of read the comments. So that was really interesting. There certainly are some barriers about drinking tap water. But if you had this data, what might you do? If you were Charlie and you were hearing these things from the congregation, what might you do? What
Well,
help might you?
I think the let me think a minute about this, but the priority is still, plastic bags is trying to reduce.
We'll
It's
get
trying to,
we'll get we'll get to plastic bags in a sec, Charlie.
okay, but
Let's
as
talk
far as
about drink.
drinking, yeah, I mean, wow, I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody brings in their own container and says fill it up. I don't know. Or I go to restaurants locally around here and say that, I'm going to have a little water, iced tea, but I said make sure you don't bring me a straw. And McFalls has done that. And they ask people if they want straws now. And so I don't know what do other people have. What are other thoughts on that? This is a little bit challenging for me.
Yeah, this is a challenge, Suzanne. I mean, the only thing that's coming to mind for me, and I've not heard of it, is really advocating for legislation that keeps restaurants from using plastic cups and stuff. I don't know.
How about a campaign to let restaurants make different choices? In other words, is that, get other congregations together and focus on restaurants to see if they might, change from plastic to something that's biodegradable. I don't know.
A lot of restaurants have started using biodegradable
Right.
flatware and other things. Hmm.
Well, I don't see why. I mean, McFalls does use a regular glass. And so that's why I'm saying, yes, you got to wash it, but not having to use plastic maybe will bring more people into the store. They'll say, hey, this is really nice. They don't serve plastic stuff.
Well, if you want to carry it out, and I think that's a concern, the
Yes,
convenience
yes,
part,
yes.
then, biodegradable, advocating rather for biodegradables at restaurants that don't have it, and maybe shaming those restaurants into, doing a survey, who has biodegradables and who doesn't. I don't know, something like that.
And let me ask this question. If you walked out of the store with a biodegradable cup, what would you do? Throw it in your garden?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, I guess so. My family wants to put the biodegradable plastic in the recycling all the time. It's like, no, we can't do that.
So Suzanne, what I'm thinking of is, because we're trying to, yes, we're saying we're trying to influence restaurants, but that's not helping the congregants change their behavior, which is what's in our power, right? So is it a campaign where you have, I don't know, like a sticker or something that when people go to a restaurant that says we pledge to change to biodegradables or something, and that each member can, like, the places they go, they can ask the businesses to make that change. I don't know.
I like where that's going.
Yep.
But
No, because there have been those campaigns for water, so for the restaurants and businesses that have where you can refill, that free refills of your water bottle, and they have like a sticker in the window.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a similar type of thing where people are encouraging businesses to switch from plastic to just compostables.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy Tengwall just joined us. Welcome, Kathy. We're just talking about Towson Presbyterian and their data around plastics, and we're discussing what we might do to help their congregation. But I have another question for you guys, which is this: what don't we know? What is there anything that stands out to you guys as what we don't know about the congregation's drinking habits?
How often do they buy plastic drink containers? I don't know.
How often? What else don't we know?
I mean, how many people buy, water from a grocery store that's in a big plastic bottle? How many people buy water bottles? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to, stop. That would be the biggest thing that we would promote. But Suzanne, if our motivation is for people to reduce plastic, we're gonna say reduce all plastic. I mean, any plastic that can be not used, don't use it. Because when you go into a store and they only have plastic, glasses and stuff like that, there's not much you can do. But yes, you can use, things like shopping bags. Yes. And I gets so mad when we go out in even McFalls, we go to pick up food and it's in these plastic containers that, that years ago we'd save those plastic containers because they were very valuable. But now you got so many of them, you recycle them. We look on the bottom, we make sure they're number 1, 2, and 3, is it? And then a 4, 5, and 6, you're not allowed to do it or whatever. So how do you, when you go into a store and you buy, tomatoes and celery and stuff like that, and you put it you see people have individual celery in one bag, tomatoes in another bag, corn in another bag. I put all my vegetables into one plastic bag, and that way, you only use one.
So, Charlie, I love what you're saying about an overall plastics campaign. I wish I had this slide right now, but I want to just remind everyone of that the diffusions of innovation curve, which was that big bell curve that talked about when people change their behavior and what instigates that. And if you remember on the left side, the really low part of the curve, we know that information, just telling people, raising their awareness, only helps the first 15% of the population. And so beyond that, if you want people to change their behaviors, you have to look at what will help them and give them some help that they need. And that's an overwhelming thing to do with all plastics, but you can do a general awareness campaign about all plastics and maybe pick one that you're going to give some extra tools. That would be a suggestion. But let's move on to the next slide because I want to talk about those other plastics that Charlie's talking about. So here's where the 3 behaviors. Plastic bags. Here's what people said. Pandemic, pandemic, pandemic. Same thing that Susan said. They're sort of barriers to using reusable grocery bags were all about, how you can't use them during the pandemic, which actually I've been using mine the whole pandemic. I just bag my own groceries. But in any case, that's definitely the big barrier. With drink containers, we heard convenience, 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 and also it's not in my control because restaurants offer what they offer. And then with plastic utensils, we only had 2 people answer the barrier and benefit, so totally not enough data. And so here's my suggestion for Towson. I think with an overall plastics focus, since we know you want to focus on, big picture awareness, which actually will bring some people along. It'll bring that first 15%, and that's not too shabby. But I would suggest that we create a more detailed plastic survey for you that gives you some more information about people's habits in these 3 areas. And I'm thinking about those drink containers. Is it plastic water bottles that people are using? Is it coffee cups with plastic lids? Is it specific beverages that are that they're wanting to get that only come in that plastic? And I think if you could learn a little bit more about what the biggest type of plastic bottle or drink container that's being used, then you could target more specifically, what to do about that particular thing. So I think if you remember, I think Towson had 26 surveys. I don't remember exactly, but in the 20s, and you're a congregation of 400 and some, right, Charlie?
Yes, right.
So I think it would really benefit you to get some more data. And so I will help you, Charlie, if you want to author a new survey that is just plastics focused, and you can field it for a longer period of time, not during the holidays or not at the beginning of the year when we have an insurrection and a new administration, when people might be more focused. And that might help you just really focus yourself a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I thought was the same thing that Susan thought. What about the bag bill? Why work on plastic bags when I bet that's going to pass this year. However, there have been a lot of places where they have passed bag bills and done behavior change campaigns to go along with it, and they found that it's much more successful if you pair the two. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea to work on plastic bags at all. It's just something to consider. So that's my suggestion for Towson. And then once you get a little bit more information, and you might also want to ask some more questions of your congregation. You could interview people, or do a little focus group if you really wanted to have more information, and you were really doing a big campaign. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let me just pause there for a minute. Are there any questions that people have about the process of choosing a behavior or taking a look at your barriers and benefits?
I just have a definitional question, and please excuse my ignorance, but could you define the word pre-emergent?
Yes, yeah. So pre-emergent, and I didn't even say that on the last slide. Will you go back one slide, Francesca? Or two slides, sorry. So pre-emergent behaviors are behaviors that are just on the cusp of being adopted. Like only the greenies really do it, and so it's hard to move more of the population. And the one that I love, that I actually was thinking about Bonnie today, is the plastic, or the little sheets for laundry detergent. So, instead of the big giant plastic jugs of laundry soap, you just get a little, like, it looks like a dryer sheet, except it dissolves in your water. And so that, and the shampoo bar, like those two things, are not appropriate for everyone. The shampoo bars, people that have different types of hair, doesn't work as well for, so, but, if you have a congregation that, maybe shampoo bars are the right thing, or the looking at household cleaning and personal care products. You could do a whole campaign around cleaning and personal care products, and how can you reduce your plastic use in those two areas. So you could think about adding something in on a pre-emergent behavior. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm thinking myself.
Good. I love those pre-emergent behaviors. Bonnie gives me such great hope because she's like, this is so easy. And it is. It's sort of a cheater. I mean, not cheater, but it's so easy. It's so easy to make that behavior change much easier than the cup thing, because it's such a complicated behavior.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How, like, I just started with the shampoo bar, and how do you help people when they say they want to try it, but there are like 50,000 shampoo bars out there? And I did some, checking, and so I picked this one, and it just happened to work. So are you supposed to suggest, specific products?
When I'm making my own consumer choices, and other people can weigh in on this, I have some things that I look for. So I look for like a locally owned or women owned or minority owned company. And I was looking for shampoo bars without palm oil. And what might be helpful is to do a little research and provide some, if these are your, you know, things that are important to you, here's a couple places. And I love that Bonnie sent the name of the place that's right in Baltimore that doesn't use.
I looked
And
at
you
that.
could, yeah. So, and you can also crowdsource it too.
Okay.
To add to that, after our last session, I started looking into shampoo bars, and I have very curly hair that is very specific. So I kind of ran into that, like, I don't know where to start. So I found some websites that did reviews and had, like, we recommend these for specific hair types. So I would suggest, maybe providing some of those websites would be helpful.
Okay.
What are shampoo bars?
Uh-oh, we're going to get you now.
Good.
So shampoo bars are just they're just things that they look like a bar of soap, except you use them for your hair, and they're formulated, with ingredients that are good for your hair versus your body. So
So you
no
don't,
plastic bottle,
you don't use a plastic bottle. Okay.
right? Yeah, yeah. And there are conditioner bars also.
There's shampoo and conditioner, and everyone in my family got that for their holiday gift this year. They got laundry sheets, shampoo bars, and shampoo bar conditioner, conditioners.
That costs
And
you
they
a
all
few
said,
bucks.
"What did you send me?"
Okay, so just a couple more things that I want to share with you guys this evening, and then we'll wrap it up. We are in the process of creating a Habits That Help toolkit. So we hired this company called Amplify for Change, and they're a social marketing company, communications and social marketing company. And we asked them to create a little toolkit for each of our 7 behaviors. And the toolkit is now posted on the Power to Motivate webpage, which will remind you of where that is in a follow-up email. But there's essentially a document. I'm sure Katie probably made PDFs, one for each one. And they have 4 different sections. So the first section is an explanation of the behavior and how it benefits either the environment or health, with like lots of statistics and scientific studies. So if you just want to bone up on like, why is this behavior important? There's sort of the big reasons why this behavior is important, the big things that it helps. And reading through the plastic stuff really made me want to work on plastics, just thinking about how much plastic is in our own bodies that we don't really even realize. So there's that section, and then there are examples of other campaigns. So other places that have worked on plastics or planting trees, and so you can link to their campaigns and see examples of what they've done, their tools and their strategies. And in many cases, you can just contact those people that led those campaigns, and a lot of people will just share their stuff. So there's campaign examples, and then they pulled out example messages. And these messages will not work for everyone, for every audience, but you can take a look at them, and you can see if they might work for your congregation based on the barriers or benefits that were identified. And then they have some sample outreach strategies. And then with that are lots of links, lots of studies, lots of graphics. So it sort of gets you started on working on whatever your chosen behavior is. So you can read through those and get inspired, and there's a lot to get you going on those. They're pretty meaty. So we hope that you'll enjoy those, that you'll read through them, and you can just pick whichever one for whatever behavior is helpful. And then the next thing that they're doing is they're creating 7 customizable outreach tools. And what we decided is that we would do two tools for trees and 5 for plastics, because plastics is such a big, broad category. And these will be essentially example messages and graphics, and then the tool type. And for those of you that got a chance to listen to my little presentation about social marketing tools, it would be like a prompt or a commitment or, a persuasive communication. So they're going to pick the tool type, and they're going to give us messages and graphics, and then we'll get them graphically designed, and they'll be sort of customizable for you guys. But that's what they're going to do next for us. And those will be 7 things that people could take and personalize. And certainly for those in this course, I'll work with you on using them or specialize or customizing them for your congregation. So for Charlie and Susan, we'll talk about how we can make those useful for you specifically. And so, okay, so coming up next, and I just wanted to give you a quick intro to what we're doing at the next and last session is February 18th. So we're going to be then going from now we've chosen the behavior and we've looked at the barriers and benefits. How do we put together the tools and the strategies? So if you've ever heard the analogy, if all you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. So, you want to choose the tools and the strategies that might work. And so here's just a quick example on the next slide. And it's really looking at the barriers that you have or the benefits that you have and picking tools. So remember the plastic people with their drinks. It was all about convenience for them. Convenience, convenience, convenience. Then maybe you want to look at that one's reversed. The barrier should be convenience and the tool should be structural barrier. I never noticed that. Anyway, so then you'd look at the structural barriers. Are there, for example, people that toss their pet waste? If it's not convenient to carry their pet waste, in their backpack on a long walk, maybe they're going out to lunch afterwards, giving them a physical place to throw away that pet waste is a structural, a structural intervention. So depending on what your barriers are, you can match the right tools. So that's what we'll be talking about in the next session. And I think this is my last slide coming up, I think, Francesca, is that right? Okay, yeah. So I think is this my last one? Okay, anyway, session 3, February 18th, and we'll be looking at tools and strategies, and then also the all-important evaluating your campaign, because if you get to the end and you don't know what you've accomplished, then, it's hard to justify all your work. And so, but evaluating actually starts at the beginning. So we'll be sort of talking about that at the next session, and that is it.
May I say something? Listening to all this right now and the amount of plastic, we said, well, you can't, a store gives plastic bottles out or plastic, whatever. But it would be great to advocate for, rather than using plastic, and we mentioned this, use compostable or whatever things that because I how many people, I mean, I when I go to, I love Mom's store, okay, and when you go in there, there's so many things that you buy that are in plastic. Olives, they're plastic, and this and that, it's all plastic. And so how do we replace that plastic? I don't know, but advocacy is one thing that we got to promote, because plastic is one of the biggest problems we got in the oceans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I just mentioned that.
So I just put in the chat, we're having another showing of the story of plastic. It's going to be available for viewing between February 5th, and then we have a panel discussion. Susan got us started on this, and so there'll be a panel discussion on February 10th. So if this is something you think your congregation is going to be leaning towards the plastic one, go ahead. I just sent the flyer to you, and it's on our website. So go ahead and promote that, and it'll kick things off. At least get that knowledge piece going.
And Katie, did you just throw something in the chat too?
I put the link to the webpage that has the Habits That Help toolkit, so you can see all the habits there with the PDF resources.
Bonnie, when you say your website, which organization?
IPC, Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. It's
Okay.
on our event page.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was your congregation.
Oh.
Here, and I'm going to make a connection right here. Charlie, at the reserve that TPC owns.
Yes.
What's the name of it?
Bee Tree.
Bee Tree. Do they need trees?
BEETREE. One word. Bee Tree.
Do they need trees planted?
They're planting them. We're planting
Okay,
them.
well, the people from Faith that don't have space to plant trees can come up and help plant trees at Bee Tree.
Seriously, or we could plant, Susan, we could plant on your church too, if you
Yep.
had any place to
Yep.
plant trees. Look up the Gunpowder Valley Conservancy. We plant trees. You know, it doesn't cost you anything.
All right,
Thank you, Bonnie.
I'm gonna get you guys together.
Good.
So one thing that is also envisioned for the toolkit is that there would be a section about local resources for exactly this reason. And so Bonnie's pulling together some of that information, and eventually the toolkit pages will probably live as web pages on our website. So you can just click the links, and so that we can put Bonnie's local resources too. So that's it.
Yeah, I'm not forgetting about the rest of you guys. Well, we're gonna help you guys too.
Okay, well, that's all I have for you guys tonight. I'm happy to stick around and answer questions or chit chat for however long you guys want to, but we'll send you the recording, and actually I'm going to stop recording now. We'll send you the recording and those two resources, the link to the resources and the link to the Story of Plastics show. So we'll send that tomorrow, and anybody who missed tonight can just listen to it and join us on the 18th.
Suzanne, I do have a question. I don't know, you don't need to record it. So for those of us who didn't have over 20 people respond to our surveys, so is the data that we have still something that we can use to